Hey y'all, hey y'all, hey y'all, hey. Good morning. We are getting ready. Oh, that vexes me too. We are getting ready to go live on the radio in just a few minutes, but as you know, usual, to give y'all the sneak peeks behind the scenes, we got my producer. He's adjusting some microphones in the background, so sorry for the table shaking. We got to make sure we can hear my girl Candyce as she drops these pearls of wisdom on us this morning. So another thing that I'm focusing on is speaking to the camera.
Okay, so I will try to do that.
And it's weird to me because I feel like if I'm having a conversation with you, then why am I looking into the camera but I'm talking to you? But then my brother was like, well, just act like you're talking to that person. Yeah. And that made it better for me.
Okay, so I'll just look at you here and talk to you.
I'm trying. But I did give feedback. You know, people felt like they were part of the conversation. So I'm trying for y'all, YouTube and other listening media outlets. I'm trying for y'all. So, yes, bear with us with the table shaking. We're getting some stuff squared away. And then we're going to go live in a few minutes. In just a few. So that's what it looks like. Like that looks all this time.
Way more professional.
Gotta keep this on down.
Yeah, definitely. I understand. Definitely. Wow. I'm going to do this for you guys real quick. Okay. That was so cool to me. I don't know. It was really cool.
Yeah, this helps with the sound.
So is that close enough?
Actually, I think it's better off right here. I can turn her up.
Okay, let's do that.
You guys want to hear it? You guys want to talk? It won't play on the radio.
Okay, because you know that was my concern. Like, don't put us on the radio. Okay.
I'm gonna see how it sounds. Because I didn't know this thing could turn on.
No, that would. I mean, whatever works.
Yes. Yes.
So you usually take notes too?
I do sometimes because, like, if someone is saying something and it's something that I want to come back to at a later time, like, okay, earlier you said such and such and such. Can we, like, revisit that? So y'all do.
Okay.
So that's cool, but you want to make sure that, because it's blocking your face, we want the world to see your pretty face. Yep.
All right.
Oh yeah! Oh, look at you. That's why he does what he's done. Yep. Okay. Awesome. So he's gonna do like a mic test, whatever. I'm gonna put these on.
Do you want me to cooperate?
You can, if whatever.
Okay.
God bless your ministry.
All right.
Now he has assured us that we're not on the radio yet. We're just gonna do a quick mic test. Okay. Hello. Hello.
So yeah, you're good.
I hear myself just now. What about you?
Okay, testing 1 2. Hello.
Go ahead.
Testing 1 2. Hello.
Oh, that's good. I like it. He's good at this game. Avian is my favorite. All right. Well, I'm ready when you're ready, sir. Good morning, my We Are Not So Different family. Thank you for taking your time to spend your mornings with me. This morning, we have Miss Candyce Cabral. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes, you are.
Miss Candyce Cabral with us. And I'm super excited because she has a lot of experience as it pertains to social work. Okay. And anyone who's been rocking with me long enough knows that I'm a huge advocate for victims of domestic violence. I will even specify on the women and children. No diss to the men or anything like that. I'm not trying to exclude you or say that it doesn't happen, because I recognize that it does. But being a, I hate to use the word victim, but being a recipient of said domestic violence as a way that we grew up, I'm a huge advocate for those who have been in that or similar situations. So I'm really excited to pick her brain a little bit
Okay.
about the things that she's experienced. So, but as normally, I start off my show the same way every single time. Besides, first of all, y'all go ahead and get your favorite chair and get you the either drink or Corolla or, Cavassier, whatever is your drink of poison, and get ready. Just get comfortable. We're going to have a discussion today. But before we get started, we're going to start off with a few questions.
Okay.
And the very first one being, if you, Candice, had the undivided attention of a platform of your choosing, who would be in that group of people, and what would you tell them?
Okay, so if I had the option to select a platform, it would be speaking with junior high school.
Junior high?
Yes.
Okay.
I think at this age, between the ages of, I would say, 10 and 13, that's a pivotal moment in developmental stages where not students, well, they are students,
they should be.
Yeah. But kids are very self-aware. They have their own expectations and outlooks on life. And most of the time, there's a lot of zeal involved as well. So I would speak to them and encourage them that every decision that they make moving forward would impact their future. So they can either be defined by their past and what they know, or they can redefine their future. So that's what I would talk to them about.
That's kind of heavy.
Yes.
Okay, so junior high.
Junior high.
You said from 10 to 13?
Between 10, yes.
10, yeah, because high school, some start at 13.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's cool though. 10 to 13, the choices that you make will impact your future.
Your future, yep.
So start thinking about it.
Because that's the beginning stages of adulthood, if you think about it, right? Okay. So they have seen a lot. They're more aware of the world. They see the evilness of the world. They see the expectations that they are faced with. And they also see the flaws of their parents and other, people in authority. So they have their own opinions as well. But with all of that knowledge that they've obtained, it'll be very important for them to become more self-aware in whatever decisions that you make, considering the information that you do have, to make sure that it's going to define your future, redefine your future in a positive light.
I know that's right. Okay. Mm-hmm. So for those people, let's break it down. Like it's time to be woke. Yeah, even at a 10-year-old, at a 10 age of 10-year-old, like you want to start thinking about your actions. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay. And number 2, if you have the opportunity to speak to a younger version of yourself, say 6-year-old Candice. Now, mind you, you got all of the stuff that you know what happened in your life. We're not trying to do anything to change it.
Right.
But what do you feel like little 6-year-old Candice needs to hear?
6-year-old Candice, Candy Girl. That's what I was called.
Yeah? Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, and some of my family members still call me Candy Girl.
Oh, that's funny.
I'm like, it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
We family, right?
Right. So if I was to speak to my younger self, I would say, Candy, there is a difference between those who are raised in normal family structures and those who are raised in dysfunction. There's a difference between those who are raised in a family where there's role models on how to love, and then there's those who are learn by by hands-on training.
Okay.
And then there are some people who are raised that have a clear path of where they're headed in life with a few bumps in the road. And then there's those that have absolutely no direction and end up falling into pits. And some of those pits are fire pits.
Fire pits.
And with that, the beauty of your journey, because you will be raised in dysfunction, you will not have a clear path, and you would fall into a lot of fire pits. There's going to be a beautiful revelation in that journey.
Mm.
And in the fire pits that you fall in, you're going to come out of it, you're going to be stronger, and you're not even going to smell like smoke.
Oh, I love it. Oh, I love that. Okay. So you giving little 6-year-old Candy girl the down low, like, look, baby girl,
Yes.
this is what's coming.
That's the real reality of life.
Yeah. But I like that you're gonna come out and you're not even gonna smell like smoke. You're not gonna be singed. You're not gonna have any physical scarring or remnants of what you came out of.
Your past will not define you.
Say it louder, can you please?
Your
And look into the
past
camera.
will not define you.
That was for someone more than little Candy girl, 6-year-old. That was for someone. Your past does not define your future. Let him that have an ear hear. Okay. So I want to really jump into the meat and the potatoes, so to speak. So give our listeners a little bit of background of what you do with the social work in like your years of extensive experience.
Okay, so I came right out of college, kind of looking for work like everyone else. So when I walked into the line of social work, I didn't find that career. I feel like it found me in a way. And with that, I was able to kind of grow into a lot of gifts that I have of being a relatable person, being able to win the trust of others very easily. So throughout my career as a social worker, I've encountered a lot of different populations that I helped kind of overcome whatever specific barriers that they had. So these populations included children with mental illness or adults with mental illness, intellectual disabilities, individuals who struggle with drug abuse or any other type of abuse, physical abuse, and then pretty much beyond all age groups I also worked with. So from the age of 8 to maybe 78.
Wow. That is a very broad categorization. Like, so do you, for like, because I'm ignorant as it comes to, as it pertains to the work and the classifications, do they ever have like a specialized, like, say, this person's specialty is for, like you said, ages 10 to 13, and this person's specialty is for 18 through 21, or so, or is it just like get in there, get in where you fit in?
Yeah, since there's such a high turnover rate in the field of social work, it's pretty much like you described. Like if you have the willingness to help a certain population and you have a little bit experience of dealing with crises, you are pretty much qualified for any population or age group.
Wow. Okay. So it's not even more so about who gravitates to you, but who you gravitate to, maybe?
Yeah, in a way, there's you have a selection of what type of population you want to serve.
Okay.
And there's a lot of transferable skills that will be able to roll over in the line of social work. A lot of the roles includes a case management component, identifying barriers, developing treatment plans. So a lot of the task is similar, but the population could be different.
Wow. Okay. So I would like to focus more on the population as it pertains to like children in homes and stuff like that. Because I think, bless God, that you have such a wide variety and a wide range of, I think that's awesome. And you said something about transferable skills. You can take those anywhere, like not just in the social work, but I'm glad that that's what you have I hesitate to say, but I'll say calling.
Yeah,
Because
that's
it
fine.
takes a special kind of person. Like everybody nerves ain't where they need to be to
That's
handle
very true.
the different types of stuff that I'm sure that was thrown at you. You said mental abuse, you said drug abuse, you said all different kinds of stuff. Everybody ain't able. So
Hmm.
God bless you. So as it pertains to children and homes and stuff like that, like
Hmm.
what was your abuse with that? I said abuse. Lord
It
help.
was kind of like abuse. No, I'm just
Oh
playing.
no! Oh no!
I'm
She's
kidding.
playing, but she's
Yeah.
not playing.
No.
What was your experience with that like section?
So I did work with children who was in foster care. My role was a intake specialist for a reception center, and a reception center is pretty much like a children's shelter. If I'm sorry, did
No,
you
no,
have a
I'm sorry,
question?
no, because
Oh,
it
okay.
just struck a chord with me. Like when I think shelter, I think like homeless people.
Well, these are children that are displaced because they have been removed from their home. So, my job involved, as an intake specialist, kind of gathering information and seeing where they would be most appropriate in that facility. So, demographic information is what I would usually get, where they're coming from and what their preferences are.
Whose preferences? The
The
children?
the, the child.
Oh,
So
they give them a.
a little bit, like, do you like to color? Do you like, what are some activities you like to do?
Oh,
Kind of like that.
okay.
What do you like to eat? Do you have any food restrictions? What's your favorite song? Anything that we can do to kind of make them comfortable because they're pretty much leaving very toxic and volatile environments. So we just try to, I'm sorry, accommodate them in any way that we could.
Right, right, right.
Hmm.
I would imagine.
Hmm.
So you said you were an intake specialist at a reception center,
Yes,
and that you said it was kind of like a children's shelter,
it was.
and
Yes.
that word made me sad.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, no, it's fine. I just, yeah, I have a soft spot when it comes to. Okay,
So,
so you were an intake specialist. So you worked at this reception center.
yes.
I'm not going to use the word shelter anymore.
Okay.
Okay.
That's.
So you worked at this reception
Hmm.
center. So then you weren't there when the child was removed from the home.
No.
Okay. So the child is removed from the home, from whatever toxic environment that they're in,
Hmm.
and then they show up at your doorstep, for lack of better wording.
Right.
What happens?
What happens is, depending on who is dropping them off, it could either be a police officer or their state caseworker. And they would give me a little bit of information about the child and what the needs are. And the child is then left with me. We're kind of in a waiting room. Um, so before I'm able to take the child on the floor, my job would be able to, like I said, do a little bit of intake paperwork, kind of get a feel for what the child needs are, what their preferences are. If they're hungry, I would feed them, and then I would also um, schedule them to meet with a nurse because they would need to be clearance before they can hit the floor, make sure that there's no diseases or viruses that they can transfer to the other kids. So while I'm meeting with the child, um, there are a lot of different responses based upon where they're coming from. Some of the kids have been in the system for a long time, so they have their expectations and needs already set because they know the process very well. And then there's others who would come in and they would have absolutely no idea where they are, no idea who I am and what the next steps are, and they're
Right.
extremely afraid.
I can imagine that
Yeah,
has to be a jarring process.
it really is.
So, when you say system, like I'm gonna need you to use like I don't want to say normal words, but like for
Okay.
people like me who are not necessarily familiar with the lingo that goes along with the social work. When you say system, you mean like
Like the foster care system.
okay.
Hmm.
So foster care when the kids are in the reception centers,
Yes,
that is considered foster care.
it is.
Okay, so the foster
So children are either in the reception center or they're in a foster home.
okay.
Hmm.
At a foster home, that's like a family, like you come
That's
live
a
in my
family,
house.
yes.
Okay.
So these are qualified foster parents that been licensed through the state to intake children
Okay.
who have been removed from their home.
But that's not a permanent situation, right? It's
No, it's not permanent.
That's like a temporary.
Right. Adoption would be permanent.
Okay.
Foster care is temporary. Yep.
Okay. So, can you describe a little bit more like what these reception centers look like? Or are like, not look, I guess. Can you? If not, then we can go on to the next.
Yeah, I can describe the building where I live. I mean, where I worked. It was, I would say it was about 8 stories. And depending on the child's age, it would determine where they would live. So it usually went from children that were between the ages of 0 and 5 on a lower level.
You said 0.
0,
like babies?
Yeah, I know. And then it would kind of go up in age.
Did you ever have to deal with when babies were taken away?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Well, the baby can't like say, hey, like.
I know, it's hard.
Oh my gosh, I was not ready for this. Okay, so I'm sorry I interrupted you. So 0 to, go ahead with your.
Maybe up to 18, depending on, what their intellect level is. They can be an 18-year-old that's developmentally delayed, so they would go to a different floor that's more appropriate to fit their needs, their social needs.
So like a 8-story building. So like, for lack of, I don't want to say like an apartment complex, but that's like kind
of like that. Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna say that's the kind of vibe that I'm getting.
Mm-hmm.
So like, say you're on the first floor and there's like, I don't know how many rooms are on an apartment complex, first floor, 6, 10 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming it's like co-ed or whatever. Or no?
It was divided.
Okay.
So there was a boys' floor and a girls' floor.
Okay,
or
good.
There were different divisions on the floor. So one side would be all girls and the other side would be all boys. And depending on the capacity of that floor.
Okay. Okay. So like, say how many, like, give me like a random number. If there are like 10 rooms, so 5 would be for the boys and 5 would be for the girls.
Yeah.
And there would be like 2 or whatever in a room. So that's like 20, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if it's 20 children, how many, what's the parent, or I'm sorry, I can't say parent, overseer. Mm-hmm. So what's the overseer to child ratio?
I never knew the exact number of the child to staff ratio.
Staff, thank you. Help me out, girl.
I don't know. I never really knew that. And if I made an estimated guess, it would probably be like maybe 2 to 1.
Okay, that's good.
So it wasn't never.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, who's watching all these children?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
So then there were also children who had behavioral issues who were assigned a special staff to kind of watch after that particular child. So if they had a tendency to elope, they would be on watch. So
they had a tendency to elope.
Run away.
Oh, that's what it's called?
Mm-hmm.
Eloping.
Yes.
Okay. I have questions that will continue. I don't know. Okay, so I guess so the kid comes in. He's in the reception center. And then what? Like, is the goal to get in foster care, like a family, or?
Yeah. So after the child is removed from the home, the first hope is to place them into a foster care home.
Oh, directly. Okay.
But the reception center is available for children who have no other place to go. So they weren't able to find placement in a foster home. So now the only result is the reception center.
So you said that the foster home, those are people that are qualified, and I would imagine they've gone through a vetting process in order to be deemed responsible enough to watch the kids. What about the people in the reception area? Am I saying that? Reception center.
Reception center.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are they also vetted and deemed responsible to care for these oncoming all these children?
Yes, I would say that they would go through the required training to be qualified to work directly with children. Yeah.
That's what she's saying, but her
That's
face
what I'm saying.
is saying something else.
These are qualified on paper, but when it comes to the actual performance, it would be quite different. And that's my experience of encountering some of the individuals on the floors working directly with children.
Can you expand upon that? I'm not trying to get nobody in trouble. We're not gonna say no names or anything like that. And if you can't, tell me to kick rocks and I'll keep moving. But can you expand upon your experience with the reception staff or the?
Well, I can say in general, as a social worker, when you're working with individuals with high level of needs, whether it's children or adults, there's a high risk of burnout. So if you are working directly with children with behavioral problems who've been removed from their home and experiencing so much at one time that one person would be able to handle, more often than not, the staff working with children are burnt out or on the verge of becoming burnt out if they don't have a solid support system for themselves. So what I experienced is a lot of the staff being burnt out, so they would be a lot harsher on children with behavioral problems than would be. It would be ultimately cause that child more damage than good, unfortunately.
Hmm. So is it just the ones with behavioral issues, or like I don't? I'm trying to refrain from using words that carry a negative connotation.
Right.
But would it be specifically aimed at those with the behavioral issues, or is it like across the board? Anyone can get it. I had a bad day. Y'all go sit down before I, you know.
Well, I can say that a lot of the staff have a particular schedule that they would want to follow. So if there are any children that is not cooperating within that schedule, then whether you're good or bad, happy or sad, they're going to have a negative reaction to that child. And that's what burnout typically does, right? It's like you really don't identify the needs of the person or the reason for the behavior
Because you're
itself
burnt out.
because you're burnt out. You're trying to get through the day and you need these children to fall in order. And more than likely, these kids, they're not able to because they're dealing with their own needs not being met. They're dealing with their own, feelings of rejections and displacement and everything else that a child could really be able to comprehend. And that's the other thing. They're not even able to comprehend what's going on.
Right.
All they can do is act out to express this. It's not right. I am not safe and I'm scared.
Ugh, it's really heart wrenching. So, like as I stated earlier, we grew up in a very abusive household. Dad was very physically abusive. He was mentally, psychologically, emotionally, uh, you name it. Like he ran the gamut on like how he treated us and everyone, mom, kids, everyone could get it. He had breathtaking anger issues to say the least, and we were on the receiving end a lot of the times. And there were times where the police were called. In the era that we grew up, my dad was known. The police knew him by name. They knew him by nickname. Like they knew, I am convinced, they knew what was going on in the house. One time in particular, they came after receiving a call and they saw us scared, crying, cowering in the corner. And literally their response was, "Oh, nothing to see here. Have a great day, Mr. Mays." So that caused me to be angry at the police. To this day, I feel some kind of way. Like when they say to protect and serve, I don't believe them. I'm sorry. But then I think about what would have been on the other side. Like had they intervened.
What would have been on the other side is the question.
Yes.
I can't speak for police because there are good and bad police officers. We all know that. But even if it was a police officer who actually cared and physically seen what was going on, but knew what was on the other side was more danger. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In that moment, he probably decided to keep you at home. You know what I mean?
That's crazy.
Because the system is flawed. Like the police officer will hand the case over to the state, and then the state would hand it over to an assigned caseworker, and the caseworker would hand it over to either a foster parent or a reception center. So there's a lot of hands involved, and it's so easy for that child to fall into the wrong hands if they're mistreated by the police officer or their caseworker or the intake specialist at the reception center or the staff at the reception center. So these children are so vulnerable to all of these people, and it only takes one person to mistreat that child before they literally clam up, to protect themselves and preserve their own little baby sanity.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Baby sanity is right because they're little. Like, they don't have the capacity to process the emotion that comes along with what you just removed me out of. Because if I had to be removed from the house, something apparently was going on. And now B, I'm in this foreign land. I don't know nobody. I don't trust you. And I don't necessarily trust where I left, but I know, like they say, trust the devil that you know. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
At least I knew what he was finna do to me. I don't know what you finna do to me.
Exactly.
So I can see how that would cause some people to like wow out. Oh my gosh. So, the part that you said about the 0, I have to go back to that. So please tell me that there is something more that is required for the people that are dealing with these babies.
Well, I would say as an intake specialist at the reception center, I didn't have to intake a lot of babies because babies are more often than not selected by foster parents.
Okay.
Foster parents have a preference of who they would like to take in, either age, race, sex, whatever whatever would fit their household. So babies
Everybody wants the babies. Okay.
Everybody wants the babies.
Did y'all hear me exhale there? I was like, Jesus.
But if there are babies with, who have like maybe drugs in their system and they're maybe colicky or have a lot of, more symptoms of, their toxic environment, I would say, and would be more of a disruption to the home, then they would come to the reception center.
So then I guess my question once again is, please tell me that there's more rigorous training and or vetting process for those who are responsible for looking after the babies.
Yeah, for the most part, I would say the ones who have been there at the reception center the longest have been in that unit, like with the babies. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was a lot of like mothers there, a lot of nurturing, because babies, you can kind of get them into a rhythm because they can only cry for so long before they're napping.
They tuckered out. Yeah.
Their needs are very basic as far as feed me, change me, clean me.
Right.
So it was a lot easier. But once children become older and more vocal and have an idea of what they want, then it become more challenging for the staff.
So say you do have a very vocal, like, I hate it here, like that meme, I hate it here. So then what?
Oh, for me as an intake?
Or like whoever, like the residential staff.
Right.
Like,
so there's training on how to respond to a child who's being defiant, but how would they go about making sure that those steps are followed? It's kind of in question, who's running the check to make sure that the staff is appropriately handling the children.
So what if someone's like, I want to leave, let me out?
Okay, so if you are under the age of 14, you are not able to leave. But 14 and older, you would be able to leave.
I need to know who came up with that.
I have no idea.
Okay, then I just want to know who to point the finger at.
We would not be able to. We were not able to hold anyone that was
14.
Yes, 14 and older at the reception center. They could leave.
14. So you need to be 18 to smoke. Oh wait, is it 21 now?
I don't know.
So I think I think they just raised the limit. So you have to be 18 or 21 to smoke and drink. 18 to go to the army for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But at the age of 14, I can say, I don't want to be here, let me go. And the reception center would let me go.
Mm-hmm.
I find that extremely disturbing. I'm not certain how that came to be, but there's got to be something, because I did an interview recently with Simone Halpin
Mm-hmm.
of Naomi's House.
Mm-hmm.
And Naomi's House is specifically for women that are coming out of sex trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
Get it together, Andrea. But one of the most alarming statistics that she gave me was that the average entry rate, so the average age that a young woman enters into sexual trafficking and or exploitation, was 13. I was flabbergasted.
Mm-hmm.
At the age of 13, I was still climbing trees, playing football, and boys had cooties. So at the age of 13, the last thing I was thinking about was some of the things that these women, or I can't even say women because they're girls,
Mm-hmm.
barely a teenager, 13. The average age that they enter into sexual trafficking was the age of 13. And here you are telling me that at the age of 14, somebody in all of their wisdom said, okay, that 14-year-old has a wherewithal to make a decision to say she can take care of herself.
Yep. And just think about it, going back to all the hands that's involved in the system, from the police to the caseworker to the staff at the reception center. If this 13 or 14-year-old girl is being mistreated by either one of these professionals, and then on the street there's a pimp who is kind to her and meeting all of her emotional needs, it will only make sense for that young child to gravitate towards where she's being treated right. So there were young ladies who would come to the reception center who were, prostituting, and I would work with them to try to encourage them to stay. And I would try to equip them with the mindset of, some people are just not nice. And I know that you have issues with the staff, um, and you've had issues with the staff in the past, but you're coming here for shelter and you're coming here for safety, and we're going to get you back in school. So they would hear my whole scheme, right? They'll be like, okay, I want to get my life together. I want to do all of these things. And then they'll say, can I have something to eat? And I'll say, sure, let me go get you some food. So I'll go get them some food while we're waiting for the nurse clearance. They'll eat some food, and then they'll say, okay, I just got a call. I gotta go pick up my brother. I'll be back. And I'm thinking, well, you just ate, and now you want to leave.
She's not coming back.
She's not coming back. She just came there to go through the whole process just to eat and get back out on the street.
So then apparently your pimp is not taking care of all of your needs if you have not. I know that's a whole nother.
But I don't think they're consistent. You know what I mean? Only to, while, that young girl may be working, yeah, we want to make sure you're healthy and taken care of. But if it's not consistent, if they're not able to take care of that girl full time, then the girl will have to fend for themselves. So the young girls are so used to getting crumbs of love, right? And then they say, okay, well, that's enough. If it's not enough, then I'll go to where I can at least be supported until I'm able to get that crumb again.
Right. Ugh. I don't know how you did it for. How long did you do this for? You've been a social worker for how many years?
12 years.
I don't know how you did it. By the grace of God, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
But like just listening to you speak is like gut wrenching. Like I don't know how you did it. Well, God bless your ministry. So I'm trying to change the subject right now.
Okay.
Like I can't even.
Okay, let's keep it moving.
So oh God, help. I can only imagine the mental state of mind that a child has having been exposed to the system.
Mm-hmm.
So, can you share or go over some of the typical behavior and emotional responses for children who have been removed from their homes?
Yeah, some kids, it wasn't always bad. Some kids would come with a lot of excitement. It's
To
almost as if they're on an adventure. Like, oh, I've been sharing too many, um, all of my clothes and my bed with my brothers and sisters. Am I gonna get my own bed?
they happy to
Like,
get
are we
away.
gonna eat? Yeah, they're happy. But once they encounter a challenge or some type of, a level of discomfort or some type of structure that they have to abide by, that's when everything kind of
Mm,
changed. But during that intake process that I have with that individual, they're usually pretty excited. They're comfortable, they're watching TV, they're eating, they're going through the process quite easily.
wow.
Hmm.
So, but I'm sure there's a flip side.
There is a flip side. Like I said, once they have to kind of fall into the structure that they may not want to comply with, that's when we start seeing a little bit of the behaviors. But that usually never happened during the time that they were with me. They were excited. They were getting all of their needs met during that time.
Right.
So once they hit the floor, that was a whole other story that I did not
Oh,
see. So then there were other children who came in who were very afraid. Remember when I was talking about being clammed up? It's like you can't get not one word out of them. And most of the time they would want whatever that they had at their home that they were using as a means to cope or escape, like my video game or my blanket or my shoes. It can be something that they were deeply attached to that they were afraid of losing. So it took a lot of reassurance, like, okay, we'll see if we can get that for you. I just want to let you know you're safe. But distracting that child from that, whatever that was, where they were able to find that comfort was quite challenging.
mm. So, what was that like a reality? Like, were you able to go back and get some of the stuff, or is that just something that?
I never seen that happen before. It
Mm,
would be left in the hands of the caseworker or anyone by the state to be able to retrieve those things from the parents. But I never knew if they were able to get those items or not.
right. I just can't help but, and I know I keep saying this, but I can't. I can't help but just like imagine if they'd have snatched me and my brothers out of our home, like how if we would have been able to cope and like what it would have been like had we run into some of those
Yeah.
that were.
So it was you and your two brothers.
No, it was there were five of us. I have four brothers.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So
Squat.
you and four brothers. So
Yeah.
more, I know that they usually try to keep children together. I mean siblings together. But if they're not able to, some foster homes prefer girls rather than boys. Boys are a little bit more difficult being placed depending on their behavioral problems. Oh, and when a child is removed from the home and the caseworker is calling the foster homes to see if they would be able to take these kids, the caseworker don't know a whole lot of information about that child, where they're coming from, what's the abuse. They know the minimum information. A lot of information is not revealed until maybe a, a week or two later.
Why
But
though?
the importance of removing that child from the home and putting them in a place of security is the primary objective.
Paramount.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, you think that having that information would help people make more solid decisions. But
Hmm.
who am I? Okay,
Yeah.
so we talked a lot about the kids. What about some of the parents' responses when they find out that their kids are going to be removed?
So that goes into another one of my roles as a social worker when I worked with adults with mental illness, with a mental illness. Some of my clients had their parental rights revoked or restricted. Um,
Revoked means you can't see the kid anymore. It's done.
you can't. It's
Okay.
over.
Okay.
There's no turning back.
Okay.
Um, so working with those clients, when I work with them at the beginning stages where their child had been removed by the state, there's a sense of shock, there's a sense of embarrassment. So just walking through all of those emotions, but there is a clear plan in place of what steps that those parents would need to follow in order to get their kids back.
Okay.
And I would say that the state does a really good job in making it plain and clear of what those next steps are.
Okay. Okay. So there's no ambiguity. This is what you got to do to get your kid back.
No.
Okay.
So my job was to kind of hold them accountable to make sure that they would walk through those steps. Sometimes it was attending parenting classes, anger management classes, whatever caused the child to be removed from the home. There's a class or some type of training involved to help equip the parents to be a better parents once the child is returned.
Okay.
So I get a lot of mixed feelings, like the shock. It'll be like, I want my child back. I can't believe. It'll be a lot of guilt. We'll do a lot of self-reflecting. But then throughout the course of time, I'll say when the rubber meets the road, you'll kind of see where their motivation was. Initially it was just embarrassment, and then as they proactively like go through the steps for so long and they haven't kind of reaped the rewards that they may have wanted to, they start to digress. They'll be like, okay, well, I'm kind of happy I'm not a parent. This has been kind of cool. Or,
oh no,
you know what I mean? Or some would really strive hard to get their child back, or they would put most of the blame on the kids and say, well, that child didn't have so many problems and caused me so many issues, then I'll be happy to be their parent.
Wow.
So
like they had a choice.
Like the child had a choice. I know I would hear so many different stories from these individuals, and I'll be like, you just should not have had a child. Like,
yeah. Beforehand,
or gave it up earlier so that there wouldn't be so much damage done.
Oh gosh. So the once they find out that it's revoked, like once a parent is 100% positive that they have absolutely no choice but to relinquish all rights to that child, that has to be something different. That has to evoke a different kind of emotion and or response than someone is saying, okay, this is what you do to get your kid back, as opposed to, you're done.
Mm-hmm. So in my experience, most of the times those parents have been addicted to drugs, and they have either felonies or just so far from even the hopes of ever being a parent again. It's just minimum to none. And they haven't followed those steps, given by the courts, and they haven't had multiple opportunities to, follow through, and they never did. So they don't really care.
The children, man. The
I
children.
know.
So what about, a kid gets taken or removed from the home.
Mm-hmm.
So then does the abuser have access to the child once they've left?
Well, it depends what the situation is. There are visitation rights that the parent would have, and it's with a mediator. And it would be up to the courts to determine how often that parent would have access to the child.
Does the child have a choice?
Not really at that point. The courts, it's kind of looking at the best interests and welfare of the child at that point. So
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then when in cases of like extreme, like, and I'm trying hard not to like go there, but at the same time, if it was bad enough for you to have your child removed from the home, like say if it was physical abuse,
Mm-hmm.
is that the only punishment they got? And I know that sounds horrible. Like,
I know.
I'm saying, like you deserve more punishment. I don't know. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just trying to process all of this. But I feel like, do they go to jail or do they just get like a slap on the wrist? Like, hey, you get a break from your kids for a month and we'll put them in foster home and then give them back to you so you can beat up on them some more. Like,
I don't.
I'm sorry.
Well, I know that is determined by the courts, and the court, in a court hearing, it's based upon the evidence that's presented. So the judge makes the final decision, right? But I know that the system is primarily focused on returning that child back to the home. They will exercise all measures. So if it's training the parent or making sure that the parent, receive consequences for their action. Maybe it is jail, maybe it is probation, maybe it's a detox program. Whatever it is, there's programs in place for that parent to receive their child back.
So, okay, so you said that courts are geared toward returning the kid.
By all means, they will exercise all means to return the child back to the
What
home.
if it was a bad kind of abuse?
Right. So it depends on like that's why I said it would depend on the judge would determine what steps to follow.
Okay. I know. I feel like I'm asking you a lot.
I know. I'm the social worker.
I know I have so many questions. Okay. So then, how often does an investigation take place where so they'll say there's a report filed. And then they come in and do an investigation. And then it is deemed that there is no abuse taking place. And then only to later find out that indeed there was abuse going on the entire time.
It depends on what the abuse is. Like, is it sexual abuse? Is it verbal abuse or physical abuse?
Let's say it's physical.
Okay. So the child will be interviewed and the parent will also be interviewed. And then who's ever conducting that assessment would determine if the case should go forward or what corrective action plan that needs to take place.
So how often do you see, it's, in my opinion, and this is only an opinion, and as you can see, I have very biased views. It's only, in my opinion, when the cases are so horrific. Like, I'm talking about the kind that hit the news, where little so-and-so might wind up dead. But then they'll go back and say, oh, turns out that so-and-so filed a report, and there was a report done, and so there was abuse happening the whole time. Is that something that you saw, I don't want to say on a regular basis? And I don't want you guys to think that I'm talking about this in such a cavalier manner, but the fact of the matter is that this is something that is happening right now. Somewhere right now, somebody that you know is being a victim of abuse. This is not something that we need to sweep under the rug. This is not something that is hush-hush. This is not one of those conversations where if you are uncomfortable, then you don't need to be listening. No, if you're uncomfortable, good. You need to be listening. So I don't want people to think that I'm approaching it with a cavalier attitude. But is this something that you saw in your 12 years as a social worker where there were reports filed, there were claims of abuse, then there was investigations done saying, okay, there was no abuse, but then later on found out, yeah, there was abuse happening? Is that something that you saw?
Yes.
On the regular?
Yes.
Ugh. So, I have so many questions, like, who's in charge? Like, do I need to write a letter? There needs to be prayer. There needs to be reformation. There needs to be, something has to be, like, who's driving? Someone's asleep at the wheel. The lights are on, but no one's home.
So there's been cases where I have witnessed a child being abused and have called DCFS. I've called, and someone came out. Someone was able to assess the child, interview the parent, and all of that. But I never seen anything happen beyond that. And I don't even know what happened after that call, but I had to continue to go to the house to, case manage the client that I was seeing in the home.
So you witnessed with your own eyes. And is it called a responsible reporter? What's it called?
Mandated reporter.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yes.
Mandated
I like
reporter.
that one too, though.
Responsible.
You are responsible right now.
You gotta say something. You gotta say something. So you, as a mandated reporter, you physically or literally with your own eyes, you witnessed something. You filed a report, and you don't know what
At that moment, it's out of my hands. Now,
Right.
if I'm called into court or whatever the case is,
But you never were.
no, nothing happened really
Jesus.
after that. So
Help us. Okay, so what happens in cases like that? When they're like, oh, we made a mistake. You were getting abused.
I don't know. I really don't know. There's so many gray areas because each case is taken, depending on what the level of the need is, how much evidence is revealed in that case, and what the judge would decide, and how the the attorneys at hand is presenting the case itself. There's so many hands
factors.
so many hands involved to make really hard decisions for these kids that it's no way to really tell.
So I guess step down off my soapbox.
Okay.
How can those on the outside looking in, how can we help? How can people help?
Well, I would say the more witnesses there are to abuse, the better chances it would be to build a case. So if you see abuse of any kind, report it as many times as you see it. I am a firm believer that the squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Yeah.
So the more people are bringing awareness to a particular home or a particular parent or a child that's being abused, the better off that child would be heard and justice would be served.
I love that you said that because I'm not going to ask you how old you are, but when I was growing up, you don't put your business in the street.
Mm-hmm.
You don't air your dirty laundry. And that was literally the theme of our childhood. We were to be seen and not heard. Don't you dare tell nobody what's going on in this house. So, and I think that a lot of people still feel some way kind of like that now. Like, that ain't my business. That's their family.
Yeah.
Like, or don't snitch or whatever. But like, dude, I don't honestly know how you can sleep at night if you see, especially with a child. I got a soft spot for young people and old people, the defenseless. So if you see something and you saw that and you can somehow in your twisted ideology come to the thought that and the determination that that is none of your business, something is wrong with you. Don't ever have children. Okay. Was there anything else that you wanted to share with us before I close? Because I am in a spot right now.
No, I just wanted to mention that we are all mandated reporters, and if we are able to bring awareness to abuse as we see it, the powers at hand will not be able to avoid responding the right way.
I like that. We are all mandated reporter, regardless of your position, your title, if you have human and being in your description, then you are a mandated reporter. If you see something, say something. And like she said, it doesn't matter how often it is. If you see it Monday through Friday, then you need to be reporting it Monday through Friday, man. These kids, they don't have the voice. They don't have the wherewithal. All they have is the person that is responsible for taking care of them. And if that's the mom and dad, then doggone it. Okay.
I also want to add to in a positive light to other social workers who are vested in helping children, creating solutions, and saving lives. There are good caseworkers out there. There are good residential staff out there. There are good police officers. So the bad can't just credit, everyone who has their hearts into their vocations, because there are people out there making a difference. So.
Yes. Thank you for that, because I was...
I just want to add that.
No, I appreciate it, because sometimes, yes, you're right. There are those out there that are making a difference, and those, they need to be... Maybe that'll be another show. I'm going to find me someone that's currently in it that's not... because I know there can be a lot of politics and a lot of involved, and I don't want... I'm not trying to... I don't want no smoke. I'm not trying to get nobody in trouble or anything like that, but... These are some conversations that need to be had. Point blank. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining We Are Not So Different, Candice. I appreciate the value that you brought to the conversation. I appreciate the nuggets. I was writing notes. I appreciate your experience. And I appreciate the fact that you were one of the people that were in the trenches trying to make a difference. You got to be like the cool auntie. Hugging and kissing on the babies. Let me sneak you some candy real quick before you gotta go. I love it. I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for spending your time with We Are Not So Different. You guys, until next time, can find me on Facebook, We Are Not So Different. You can go to my website, wearenotso different.com. I am on Instagram, We Are Not So Different _. Find me. I'm on YouTube, Andre Powell. Find me. I love y'all. Peace. Thank you, YouTube. We appreciate y'all. Click the subscribe button. I need to up my subscribers. Subscribe and then the notification button so when we go live, and we will go live next time. Okay. Y'all ready for me? Love y'all.